Hello, welcome to Mixed Media 101. It's taken me the whole day to set up and prep my studio for this class, but I'm quite happy about it because as part of the retreat, I keep on encouraging you to get rid of the clutter. And if you look at week one's content from the retreat garden, it talks about the weeds, and one of those weeds are mental and physical clutter. So for a creative excuse me, for a creative studio to stay clutter free, I think that's quite an impossible task, if you ask me. So I try to definitely implement regular cleanups and ordering my studio, and I have spent the whole day doing just that. And I must say, I feel more organized, I feel more creative, I feel ready to go, I feel ready for this class. And I'll take a couple of pictures to show you certain areas and how happy I am with it. I organized my Raskok trolley to the right of me. All my pens and brushes and things are handy. My punches are close by. I can just drag that trolley closer. My desk is less cluttered, although for the class all my prep is on the desk, but when I'm done and I put all of that away, my desk will be clean, and that's what I actually want after every session. So I can just encourage you with that. So today we're going to talk about mixed media, and I'm really excited about it. Mixed media for me personally started with my journey with paper, but also I always had a kind of a struggle with choosing or selecting a specific medium, and I think that's why I didn't really throw myself into art earlier on in my life, because I just felt like it was so technical and I didn't really understand all the different products. And when I got a little bit of a peek into different paint mediums, and somebody showed me specifically what acrylics were like and watercolor, and then oil paint. I really felt like oil paint was something that I wanted to stay away from, just because I'm kind of an impatient artist. I want to see immediate results, and oil paint takes forever, and you need to work in layers and let it dry for months on end, and you have to prep it, and it's a lot of work to get to that final result, which can be great, and that's why you pay an arm and a leg for oil paintings. Maybe someday I'll dig into it, but I think what puts me off more is the fact that I'm sensitive to smell, and oil paint tends to smell, and you have to clean your brushes with specific mediums and things. That also is not good for hormonal health, I would say, especially my own. And I feel like acrylics, anything that you can wash off with water, is something that I'm a big fan of. Right, so we will be playing with a little bit of paint today. Also, definitely with paper, because I feel like paper is my go-to thing. I always incorporate a little bit of paper into my projects, and I want to show you different surfaces that we're going to work on. I have a canvas here that I showed in my unboxing video the other day, what's in the box. I'm thinking of doing that. I prepped an artwork for it. I want to show you how to use our printable resources, art resources. I've got a canvas that's kind of pre-prepped a little bit, and I have a journal page from our Creative Girl journal as well that I'm going to play with. All right. Okay, so let's dig into what you will actually need. I think it's up to you, definitely, in the end, what you're going to mix about. I just want to mention that before we start, we do invite God into our process. Remember our sunflower system, and this is one of the projects that we did in the first class that we did on the sunflower system, and I was thinking of utilizing this a little bit in my class tonight. All right, so I'm going to put this card just to the side. We did that. I listened to the song actually. I did the water. I've been very busy in my studio, so there's my homemade lemonade. And I already had my snacks, and I've been very active, so getting up and moving around, and so I haven't been sedentary today at all. So I feel like there's a couple of things here that I can already tick off my list. Okay, and this is just to help us get going. And so we need our card with all our different prompts, and we're going to look at the prompts in a minute. And then definitely one of the prompts again is palette knives, and also similar to a previous project is portrait. So I have this little girl. I decided on one of our Faith Girl sets. Her name is Daria, and it means stand fast in God's grace. And I just love her friendliness and the hearts and all the detail. And so I was thinking of using this one. I sized her so that she can fit onto my canvas here, and the heart will go on top in front. So I'm going to adapt her a little bit, so this canvas and this artwork will go together, and I will show you what I'm going to do with that. Then I have a larger one that I printed off, so I can either decide to use it on this canvas in different ways. I don't need to put her on square, but I can also decide to just use her on a journal entry and play around with her a little bit. So we've got our portrait already, and there are different ways. I'll show you how you can utilize the portrait. So we have a canvas here that is a little bit prepped, but it feels like it needs more prepping. And then this page hasn't been prepped at all, so I will be prepping this page. And the canvas that I bought, the Montmartre canvas, says it's 380 premium cotton duck high density weave, so it's good quality, acid free, environmentally friendly, unbleached cotton duck, triple coated with universal primer, so it's already primed. So you can just start on this one, whereas the other one I need to work on it a little bit. Dent resistant, rounded edge stretcher bars, double row of back staples for strength and a contemporary look, kiln dried 38 by 38 millimeter heavy duty stretcher bars with finger joints to reduce warping, suitable for use with oil and acrylic paint. So then you know exactly what you can do with this canvas. It's a good quality, it's already primed, so you can just start with your artwork already on there. Right. Okay, so I would say my go-to medium for mixed media would be the gesso and the gel medium. So if you start off with gesso, I would say that you can dig into with different paints and things. The gesso, the Dala gesso, as I said in a previous video, is very thick, so you can water it down and then prime your canvases with it, but you can also use it as a texture paste. So that's why I keep this handy, because you have many jobs you can do with that one product. But then the gel medium is like a glue, it's like a glaze, it can seal your artwork, it can seal different layers so you don't use the work that you've already done. So I can really recommend the gel medium. You get different types. I would say economically this would be the best value because it will last you a really long time. All right, and as I said, you would need palette knives, you would need a brush, just any brush. I have a different go-to brushes that I like to use, right? So it doesn't matter if it's a rounded tip or watercolor brushes, because we're going to mix our mediums, and so we need different kinds of brushes. So that's okay. What I also do is I have this little brush, it's really worn, as you can see, and then I'm going to put my paper to the side just to explain this. I have this container, it's kind of a station that I can easily move but have all the bits and bobs that I need, so I can suggest this. I just use old bottles or jars, and I put my paint brushes in one. I have an empty one for my grey water, so when my water gets too muddy I will decant it into this one and maybe keep it later on. I can wash stuff with it, and when it's really used up, then I'll throw it out. So it's kind of a tip to save water as well. South Africa is a water scarce country, so I don't have a lot of water in my studio, or store a lot of water in my studio. I don't have a tap or a basin. I go downstairs to the kitchen, but I keep a 2-liter bottle of water in my studio, and then I do this. I use the water. When it's done, I decant it, and then this guy, when it's full and I feel like I'm done with this, I will go and throw it out. You can keep a lid on it so that it doesn't tip over and spill all over the place. I don't do that because I have it in this caddy, and it stays in place. I have a little cloth, fabric cloth here that I keep around. I have dry wet wipes. They're great for if you want to pick up some water or spills, because they're dry, they're not wet and soapy, and then if you want to wet them, you can use them like a cloth. You can do that. Right, so I keep them handy. I also keep a little spray with diluted dishwash liquid and a little bit of vinegar, white vinegar, and then you can clean your stamps with this, and your stencils, give them a quick rub down if you want. I keep my dishwash liquid in here if I need extra. This is also a cleaner, so I keep this handy in the studio. I have a water spritz, a large one if I need lots of water, and I have a smaller one if I just need a little mist. And I have an extra, just a wipe in a bag. That's it. Right, so all my brushes in here, little palette knives, so everything is together for wet stuff. And this brush I use for my gel mediums, because I'm not too worried about it. It's actually it's loose here, sometimes it comes loose here, so I just fix it there, and I'm not worried about losing this brush or messing it up. The bristles are quite sturdy, and then I can use it with the gel medium. And the tip with that is have a jar of soapy water nearby and quickly wash that. Leave it in there if you want, if you're too in a hurry doing something else, just leave the bristles in there for a little while, and then when you're ready, then you can clean it off. The tip for artists in general is don't leave your brushes in the water, because there's wood there and you will mess up your bristles. They will bend over. I tend to do that a lot, as you can see. So not Miss Perfect whatsoever. But this is a cheap brush, so I'm not too worried about that. My more expensive brushes I'm more careful with, and I will clean them off immediately as I go. And I never use glue on them. So that would be my studio tip for you. Alright, so if you work with different mediums, you need to know what the mediums do, so please read the labels always. I have this artist canvas primer that I used the other day. I also keep on hand a large tub of white paint, craft paint, or acrylic paint, not craft paint, acrylic paint, the Dala brand, because you tend to run out of white quicker than any other color. So I always have that extra, especially if I'm going to do large surfaces and so on. You can even also stock up on black, because sometimes it gives your, or brown, it gives your canvas quick dimension if you just give it a layer of darker color, and then you can start with your artwork on top of that. Alright, if you hear some music in the background on the video, it's just a little bit of YouTube video music that I'm allowed to use on videos, so it's just to not have a totally quiet studio. Alright, I'm thinking of what else I want to show you. Okay, then what you will need would be a couple of other mediums that I can suggest, and it doesn't really matter at this point. If you have kids, you probably have crayons like these. They're oil-based, so they can create a nice resist technique. You can also melt them with your heat tool, so you can have these handy. And then obviously gelatos could be great. They're from Faber-Castell. I have a variety of these available already, so I collect them. And there are different things that you can do with it, also water-based. And I've got these pens from, it's a Koi coloring brush pen, and they're water-based and dye stuff ink. Alright, and then I have these. I actually want them in all the colors you can get. Just want to put that one away. Faber-Castell Pit Artist pens, because they're India ink and they're just amazing. I I started out with black and brown because I line my mixed media artworks with these. They're a little bit expensive, but I can really recommend these. They last forever. So I have a double set of brown and black, and I have never found that they dry out, okay, because of the India ink. Right, and then lining pens, I use these Unipin Fine Line Water and Fade Proof Pigment ink, and this is a 0.3. I have different sizes in these, and they are great for drawing and for tracing your artworks and lining it, so I can really recommend that. Alright, so that's in one, I would say one caddy. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of products already. So if you mix this with paint, you can call it mixed media. What I also have is this. I have some embossing powders. I can't remember where I bought these, but you do get lots of different embossing powders locally, so it doesn't really matter. I have this brand as well, Ranger, which is good quality. Alright, and I've got a gold and I've got a frosted crystal. I always feel like white is a nice go-to color, and you can create nice textures with it as well. Right, so embossing powders, I have sprays, mixed media, ink spray. I only have 2 at the moment. So remember I said that you will collect things over time. Can you see I have a little bit of everything, but I don't have all the colors. I have a little bit of Nouveau drops, so testing products, and if I like it, I will start collecting it. If I feel like it's not for me, I'll probably just buy one, use it up, and leave it at that. Then I have a couple of Tsukineko inks, all-purpose ink. I don't know if anybody knows how to pronounce that name really. Right, and then I've got the Truffle number 55, I've got Cool Grey 81, I have my favorite 70 Vegas Gold, I have 72 Frost White, and I have 74 Champagne Mist that I haven't opened, and Real Black 82 that I also haven't opened. I intended to use this for hand lettering practice with my special pens that I have to do calligraphy and so on. And then I have these little guys. Ooh, I love them. Color Art Twinkling H2Os Hot Cinnamon. This one I think I received this from a Celebrate event, and you can see I've used a lot of it. It's supposed to last a long time, but I use it so royally I should probably not. And then a gold one as well. I would love more of these. This is Egyptian gold, so obviously I love the gold because I have gold in this product. I have gold in metal craft paint from Dala. I have what is this? This is called Bright Gold from Nouveau Crystal Drops, and I have the Vegas Gold in this. So doesn't matter which one, as long as there's a little pop of gold. I also obviously have lots of gold washi. Alright, so if you have a little obsession going with a color, then enjoy it. Right. Okay, so that's what we have, and I obviously have lots of other things as well that I can suggest. We're going to use glue stick. I find that can be real handy at times. And then obviously your heat tool, not a hairdryer. Heat tool does a different job. Be careful. This is where you need your studio safety rules, because you don't want this near water. You will see that my water is to the left of me. I'm actually right, but my plug where my heat tool is plugged in is to the right of me, and you don't want your water and your plugs together. Alright, so be careful, because sometimes the art can just take over your mind and you forget about stuff like that. So let's be careful. Okay, and then I just want to pop into this guy again. So we've got 6 colors here, and we have our card, and I want to grab my Bible. So I just made a couple of quick notes. I read the scripture again. It's our Revive scripture that's all about Jesus shouting to the crowds and saying that he's the living water, and if anyone is thirsty, to come to him. And so it's all about, if you're thirsty, you go to Jesus. The rivers of living water will flow from the inmost being of anyone who believes in him, and that living water is the Holy Spirit as well. Come to me and drink is kind of the core thing that Jesus says here. His life is definitely, his teaching and everything that he is and gives us is life-giving blessings. And Isaiah 12 verse 2 and 3, 44 verse 3 and 4, and 58 verse 11 also talks about the life-giving blessings. So that water is life-giving blessings. Then the living water can be eternal life and the Holy Spirit both, because they go together. Okay, so those are the notes that just come from the scripture, and I will meditate on that and think about that while I'm doing my artwork. My second prompt is about the prayer. So it's make a way for me, Lord, to your living water. And then the word is courage, because we need courage to ask God to we need courage to ask God, ask this of God. If you know God, then that's great. But sometimes people don't know God, and then they are thirsty. They go through life thirsty, and so it takes courage to take that step towards God. And even if you're a believer, sometimes we move away from God due to different things, sin and shame, and a lot of things, challenges, circumstances that discourage us. So we need to have courage to keep on returning to the living water. Right, so I would say the main focus in this artwork would be the word courage. And then our color palette would be at least 6 of the dark tones. So we'll have red and yellow, and the dark plum color, and dark blue and dark green, and the brown color here. And we are going to play with a little bit. We're going to try and incorporate the darker colors into the artwork. I listened to the song. We have our portrait, we have a canvas, we have palette knives, we have pens. I do have a cereal box that I snipped up. So I have this. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do with it. I don't know yet. And then my favorite spot inside is obviously in my studio, and that's why I spend time cleaning it up, making it neat. So if I look around me, everything is in its place and neat and tidy, so it makes my mind kind of calm, feel calm, and then the artwork will flow easier, I hope. Right, and then another word here, the feeling would be happy. I am quite happy that I went through the schlep of cleaning up my studio. And then homemade lemonade, check the box, we've got that. We did the snack and we did the exercise. So we've covered a lot of the bases in this card already. I feel like I have what I need to get going. And let's start. So we have our 3 surfaces, and you always start with obviously a background. And I'm going to start off by prepping, and you may ask why I have 3 things to focus on here where I actually just need 1. It's because, mainly for the class's sake, that if I'm demonstrating one thing and I have to wait for something else to dry, then we can continue and I don't have to wait to teach whatever it is that I feel I want to teach. Okay, so this one we know is already prepped, so I'm putting it just for the moment to the side. And this one is a little bit prepped, and the other one isn't prepped at all. So I was thinking of starting with this little guy. Now, our previous art journal experience, we actually we kind of had a very dimensional thing going, and at this point I don't want very much of dimension on my page, so I'm just going to work with my gel medium. And I'm working on an old acrylic piece of plastic that was actually a box that fell apart that someone gifted me, and I use it for, you can see, for everything. I do my messy stuff on here, and I kind of like the fact that it's paint and inks and scratches and everything on here, so it means that I've been working on this really hard, and I've had it for a decade, I would say. Okay, so all we need is our card, our gel medium there, and I'm going to use my palette knife just to scrape out some of this, just a little bit there. We can always go in deeper and clean off the edges here and try and put it back in the middle. Alright, so that you don't have too much gel on the sides here. I'll try and keep that clean as possible. And I don't leave it open because it will dry out. Okay, so I can start with this guy, but then I'm going to use my card. So I'm just cleaning it off on my paper, and then I'm going to use the card because I feel like the card scrapes a thin layer and I don't want more than a thin layer on here. And there's printer ink on the back, so I want to work quickly so that it doesn't bleed, and I want it to be protected if I would work on top of it with inks and paint and things. And so if you're going to scrape a lot, you're going to see some of the color come off, and that's okay because we just want to prep the page a little bit. If there's color coming through, that's okay. Remember, it's mixed media. Right, so there's my page. So I'm sealing the ink in there, and I'm also, what I'm doing is I'm giving it a kind of a plastic layer there so that if we work on that, it strengthens my surface. So for girls who love Bible journaling, that's what you do with your Bible page, obviously, right? Because it's a very thin little sheet of paper, and this is great for that as well. Okay, so I dried off my paper surface for my art journal, and it feels like it's got a gel, glossy, actually matte, not really glossy, feel to it, and it's going to curl up, but that's okay. You can always stick it down on a sturdier cardstock if you want to, and I think when we've layered everything into it, the paper and so on, then it will lay flatter than this, and you can always put something heavy on top of it. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm putting something heavy on top of it while I'm doing the background or placing the artwork on the canvas here. Right, so I decided not to prime the canvas any more than it already is. I feel like that's enough, and it kind of gives it a little bit of dimension, color coming through. I use carbon paper, so there are various ways of transferring artwork. You can do it by hand, just by looking at your artwork and dividing up your space into blocks and dividing your artwork into blocks and then transferring it block by block, or you can just eyeball it and kind of redraw it. Especially if it's your own artwork, then it doesn't really matter, nobody will know. But if you want a precise image like this, then I can suggest the carbon method. I don't use a pen, I use a embossing tool, and it's not too sharp, the edge, so that it won't rip the paper. And then as you go along, just check if you're pressing hard enough so that you can get the feel for it. And so I'm going to do it, and well, I'll show you a little bit on camera, and then I'll finish the rest off camera. So it's like coloring in a little bit. See, there is, I don't know if you can see it, there's a mark coming through. It doesn't have to be too perfect, and you don't need all of the lines because you can connect them later on. I just need to press hard enough so I can get the placement of my artwork. And if I change the artwork in the process, that's also fine. And I would say this is a nice way of working with the kits that we designed and practicing drawing by doing this, because your eye is learning as you're copying my artwork. And remember, I said that's part of your learning process. It's not thumbprint art. You're copying someone else's art, but it's okay because you're learning. And at one point you'll start to know the curves, and your hand will pick this up and your brain will pick it up. And then at one point you will start drawing your own little artworks. I'm not going to do the circles or the stripes at this point. Yep, I just want that. And I'm checking as I'm going along here. It's there. And I like the broken lines. So just use some washi. Now I'm onto the face. So I'll finish this off camera and show you the end result. This is what I have so far. So behind the scenes, what I did was I completed my drawing, so you can see that she's there, and I didn't touch that. It's not perfect, but it's just with the carbon paper, a transfer and tracing it. Okay, and then I decided to punch out circles from the cereal box that I had, and to work with shapes a little bit. And I used some of the Revive Collections printed paper, the blue sheet. I punched circles there. I used a piece of our Simply Pretty pattern paper from the Finesse collection. I had a piece lying around, and it's the perfect color for matching with the Revive pink I have here. So this is kind of a purplish pink pattern, so it gives a different texture there. And then also I used the carbon paper to trace these elements using the artwork onto the pattern paper and just trim that off. And I actually trimmed off too much of the dress, and it's also the dots here is also from the Revive Collections paper, printed paper, and that chevron here that I use as the band for her skirt is also from the Finesse Simply Pretty, the mulberry pack. Right, so the dress, I trimmed off too much of it, and then I realized, but I do have the bottom piece. I'm going to layer it, and it kind of looks like a frilly dress there, so it gives it more texture. I'm going to keep it, and it's not perfect. You'll see there's a little bit of spaces in here. That's fine, because we're still going to color it in with paint and different mediums, and so that's okay. We're going to line the artwork eventually. Right, the idea that I have here is to stick down my paper with gel medium, and then I'm going to put some texture with a couple of stencils using the gel medium and the acrylic gesso. Alright, and perhaps we'll see what we can do there. Maybe I'll emboss something also. I just want to play around with this. I haven't done this in a while, and I'm looking forward to see what I can do here that's new and fresh to what I normally do. Alright, see you in a bit. So just to show you how I do this, I've already stuck down my circles, so I'm getting down to the dress now. And so just to show you my technique, if you were wondering. Okay, so I put down gel medium. Don't worry about the necklace, because we're going to draw that back in. So just layering the background now. So where you want to glue stuff, you can put your gel medium down. So just the bottom part first. Just want to make sure that this is on camera. Yep. Okay, I need more glue here. And it's okay if it bleeds, because we want the color, so that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Remember, mixed media. Right, and now on top. Okay, I like actually the color bleeding in there. It means that I need less paint, to use less paint, so it's not a problem. But if you don't want it to bleed, just work quickly. The longer you linger with the wet medium, the more it will bleed, because it's actually home printed. If it's professionally printed, it won't bleed as much. It won't actually bleed. So what you see there on the professionally printed paper is the bleed from the home printed inkjet. So I can pick that up a little bit to clean it off. You don't want too much, and then you can use this color on the background. Okay, so just wipe it off there and then put your dress in place. Okay, now work quickly and just give everything a little bit of a layer. And because we're sealing it, it won't come off. That means you can actually print off anything that you would like to work on top of and use that. If you're not too bothered by the color coming off, look at that nice color in the gel medium already. So that can be a technique. Everybody wants to do techniques, so let that be a technique. Don't want it too thick, just want it there. And remember, you can always paint over stuff. I like the little haziness that the color already gives, so there's already a little bit of dimension on the page. Okay, so what I want to do also with the face, I don't want to lose the face. I'm going to wipe this off because I don't want the face to be pink. So I'm going to lose this, unfortunately, but that's okay. And we're going to take a little bit of the clean white and just seal that drawing there so that we don't lose it. Remember, it's carbon. Okay, so it kind of stays in place as we move product around on this. So that would be our background layer. Our artwork is on there, and I'm just going to dry this off. Okay, I've mixed a couple of things off screen. One is eggshells, so just a normal empty eggshell, and make sure that you wash these properly. They shouldn't smell because they can get bad, so you need to wash them and take out the little jelly bits so that it's just a dry shell. And then you break them down. So what I did was I used coffee cups, paper coffee cups that was used, and just trim them down so that I have a little container that I can chuck when I'm done. And I broke the eggshells down and I added gel medium to it because you need something to stick, as well as canvas primer, which would color it white. And then you can just water it down a little bit with water, and we have a little texture that we can add to our canvas. So we'll see in a minute what we're going to do there. Then the other one is tea leaves. They smell really nice. I did the same, gel medium, canvas primer or gesso, you can add that in, even white paint. So you just need a little bit of a glue there so that when it dries it doesn't fall off your canvas, so you want it to stick. And then just water it down until it forms a nice paste. And I'm using these mixers that you get for drinks, and you can even use the other side as a palette if you want to put that in. And if you're done, you can clean this off, keep it, and chuck the little cup away. Okay, right, so I want to play with my stencils a little bit with the texture, and I'm thinking that the best for my circles would be to add some texture to the cereal box circles, and I'm putting a piece of paper there so that I don't get too much of it going over the edges. I'm going to see if I can add texture to that circle. So this is an experiment, sorry, wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable there. So this is an experiment to see what I can do. So obviously that end won't work, so let's see if we can use the other end Also experimenting with that. It's like a spoon, but it's flat, so it can work as a palette. Alright, and just let's see if we can add that to that circle. Okay, are we ready? Okay. Now, not all experiments necessarily will work, but we're going to try, and the idea is just to add texture. I'm going to leave that because we're just going to color it. It looks like it's working, and perhaps we'll do it, add it to this one. Let's try again, same texture. Scraping it a little, lifting that off. It looks okay, a little bit there on her hair. Okay, so I'm adding texture to texture. The circle gives you texture and the tea leaves will give you texture. And luckily the paper is sticking to my background, so I'm just continuing. Just work quickly. Smear it on there. Okay, it works. It's a lot of texture. Alright. I don't want to overdo it, so I'm just going to clean this off. Okay, I dried off my tea leaves. Everything smells of tea leaves. And I'm adding some of the coffee cup here. Just the wrapper around the coffee cup. And it can add a little bit of dimension. So you can use things around the house, things that you would throw out. I've got loads. I'll do a video on everything that I've collected to give you ideas. Right. Okay. And then I have the paper from the tea leaf as well. So I was thinking of perhaps adding pieces of it somewhere. It's like tissue paper, so it can work like tissue paper. And the moment you stick it down, it brings out the color of the tea in it. Okay, and now I'm going to add a little bit of my eggshells. I'm going to see if this is going to work. You need to spread it out. Don't bundle it up, just try and get it placed. I want it over my wings there. It looks like a yucky mess now, but it's going to dry off hopefully. And the ones that fall off, it's okay, you'll stick them down. Just want to roughly place it. And this is where it gets messy, and you can use your fingers and stick it down, feel your way through it. Press it down. Kind of therapeutic, you'll hear it crack. It's a messy bit, but it's okay. You can just move it around a little bit. Press into your canvas. Okay, so this is the lazy artist's way of doing this. Right, I'm just going to clean myself off and I'll be back. Okay, so I gel mediumed a layer onto the eggshells, and now I am just using my stencil, my floral stencil. It's a Joanne stencil, just to give it a little bit more feminine touch. The background is kind of rough. Just here and there a little flower, and a couple of leaves and a stem perhaps. And we're not going to overdo it too much. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't want it to be perfect. We're going to color all of that later on. So I'm just trying to get some texture into my background, actually a lot. And then we're going to start with the painting process. Okay. So I have some leftovers, and I'm going onto my journal page, and I'm just adding with a different stencil some texture here and there. So you can always use your leftovers like this. So don't throw away that product if you can help it. And it's just a quick. Okie dokie, that's what we have. Let me show you. Okay, so you can see little daisies there stealing the show. And then I'm going to go over to my other canvas. Remember, it's white, and I can use what's left. And that way I don't lose a lot of product. So have some extra projects at hand, and that's how you can start new projects. Have them available, so when you want to add texture to it, you actually can. And I think that's all I need, and because it's already white, you only see the texture that I've got there. Okay, and then I'm going to clean all of this off, and I'll be back. I'm busy now with just adding some primer to all the eggshell pieces, and you don't want to lose everything, but I feel like I want to kind of camouflage all of the eggshell. We want it to show off as texture, not as eggshell. So I want to cover that at least with white, and a little bit here as well, but not everything. Some of it you can't see anymore on this end, but there's a lot of texture there. Okay, and if the color comes in, and if you lose your texture that you built up painstakingly, that's okay. If you lose some of your background, you're going to add in color and things, so it's fine. So there's a lot of white on this end, but not too much on this side, so I'm taking it off a little bit. Okay, and what you can also do is you can wet a wet wipe if you feel like you added too much, and take off some of that white if you want more of the background to show, like some of this blue paper here at the bottom. Remember we added the gel medium. Just be careful if some of your things are not dry yet, some of the texture, then that's okay, but you may mess it up a little bit. I just want some of the blue to shine through. So perhaps you can't see the circle effect too much anymore. That's okay, because we can add that in with a pen and with our coloring. I know where they are. There we go, you can see some of that blue again. So depending on how much you want to show up of your paper, I'm not too bothered. I have blue shining through a couple of places. I might just lose some texture here and there by messing with this, but it's okay. Okay, there we go. And now we're going to start with painting the face now, and that's painting, and I'm not going to show necessarily everything here. I just want to give you an idea of the process of working with a mixed media project like this. And so I want to give you pointers here and there and things that I normally do. And it's really a process that you need to figure out for yourself. So I use the Americana acrylic paint, craft paint. But I want to mention up front that this paint dries really quickly. I'm just drying off and cleaning off my glass palette to the right of me here so that I can work with the next layer of paint. Right, so I just use this color. This is a soft black, so it's not totally black. I feel like it's kind of, it has this dark brown to it, and it works well for background. So I would suggest, instead of just a pitch black, try a soft black. So the Deco Art Americana soft black. The number is DA155. So if you want to purchase that. Then what I normally do when it comes to flesh tones, I just want to grab all the paint that I'd normally use. Just one more. I like the light buttermilk. It's a nice kind of an off-white color, cream color, so that's nice. And then you get natural buff, number DA311, and then a dusty rose. Don't know if you can see that. It's very close to skin color there. And then also a highlight flesh, and I normally use that with the Snow White. Sorry, my voice is a little bit scratchy due to allergies. So Snow White I definitely use a lot. So I've run through 2 or 3 of these already, and I collect these little paint bottles, and they last a really long time. So the tip with these are that they've got a like an oil inside, type of oil, so it separates, and you need to definitely just give it a quick, especially if it's been on its side for a long time or stood still, then just give it a quick shake, especially when you start off. I do that with all my little paint pots. And what I like about these, you can take off the lid, it's a screw top, and use it like this if you need a lot of paint. But my paint lasts a long time because for these types of projects you don't need a lot of paint. So let that be your tip. That sorry, I've got a sneeze coming on. Okay, so what's important, I think, to know is that just take a little bit, a dollop, a little drop at a time, because rather use up that and add to it, depending on if you're mixing colors. And why I like the Americana is that it comes in a wide variety of colors, so you don't need a lot of mixing different colors. You can tone down things with white or add a darker color to make it darker, but I like to buy the shades that I like to use, so then there's not a lot of color mixing that I need to do necessarily, but you can if you want to. So just mix enough paint and add to it as you go along. I think that would be a tip. All right, so what I did was, you may say, well, what's she doing to her artwork now? Well, I'm trying to just give her a darker background so that she is already lined a bit. And we are going to work paint into that so that the background will be blended. So the idea is not for it to show off black, but it already looks like an artwork to me. Okay, I have my little paint swatch here, and I have selected some colors that we will try out and use, but I tend to want to stick to lighter colors in general, so I don't know where I'm going to use these darker colors. The brown is antique maroon actually, and then there's a traditional burnt sienna, so this is that plum color that's on there. And there's a midnight blue. I don't really have that yellow, but I have a saffron yellow that's a little bit of that sunflower color in the Revive collection. I do have this lemon yellow, but it's kind of a little bit too bright for me. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that. Berry red I always like for the lips, and there's cinnamon drop, which is also a very nice color. So I always feel like, because we have lips there, that we will definitely use a little bit of a popping color there. There's a flower that we need to color in. We've got the background that needs color, and then her dress, her beads needs color, and the little heart there, and we need to bring out the colors in her dress here. And so I've lined it a little bit, and let's see what I do next. Okay, so I'm going to sit down now. I was standing all the time while teaching the first part of this. I'm going to try and check my video every so often. I did download the previous one so that I have enough space on my phone. Right, so as you can see here to the right, I've got the 4 colors for coloring in her face, and I haven't done this in a while, so I'm going to just troubleshoot it a little bit. But I normally start with just with the color, and then I'll tone it down a little bit. So I'll blend. So you can start with a dry brush because the paint is wet anyway. So I'll blend the color here and just start and see. If it's too dark, then I'll lighten it. Definitely under her chin is always darker, and I'm going to let the light come from this end, so I can go darker from here. What I like about this brush, it's got a round tip. I can go into corners very neatly. I'm adding white, so I'm just feeling my way through. Winding the beads. You can start from the top down, but I don't know, for me I always start with the neck part. So that's totally your own preference where you want to start. And I want to mention this. I was thinking about just talking about the freedom that mixed media brings. I think that's important to think about. It's just to have freedom. And if you make a mistake, that's okay. Right. And we'll go in darker under the chin, kind of layering. Okay. I'm just careful of leaving the lines so I can see what I'm doing. Just basically blocking it out. There's always shadow up top over the nose, so I can go darker in there. The flume, this is called the flume, and the chin. Just have fun. Also, just remember to have fun and enjoy the process. I just want to basically see Don't worry about that. If you cover something, you go over that and with your liner and your pen and just paint it back in. So I'm always mixing in white because then you can kind of blend the shadows. Just want to make sure that I've got paint everywhere, so there's no background shining through there. I want to go lighter here on the eyes. Now we can go darker under the chin so that we can accentuate. Okay. Just went over the line a bit, that happens. Okay. I kind of like my brush to be a little bit drier. And don't worry if you can't see all the lines of the face now, you will see it later on as we line our little girl. Giving her a little sun-kissed look here. Remember, the beads and the necklace will go over all of this. So if you go into them now, it's not the end of the world. As long as you remember approximately where they are, that would be okay. Remember, the paint dries quickly, so you can blend a little bit of water, but not too much. And if it's too wet, then you can just dry it off. Just don't want this to be a blob here. I just want it to give a shadow off. Okay, so that would be the face for now. And see, I definitely put out too much paint and I'm going to lose all of this. So let me do something with it quickly. So I used the extra acrylic paint that I had for the flesh, all the flesh tones. I didn't want to throw that away. On my art journal spread, so the art journal spread had a little texture that we added with the extras we had left over from our gel medium and our gesso actually, and I added that little girl that we used to trace onto this, so we're not losing her. I just snipped off her little twirl of her hair because it kind of got damaged in the process, but I will use it later on just to guide my eye to what I want to do there, so I'll just include it, or maybe do something else there, maybe add some word sentiment so it's not even needed, so that doesn't matter. Okay, so I added just quickly, just very quickly and very roughly, I added the paint to her face. So I can color in her dress with paper if I want to, and I can play with her a little bit more. So she's a work in progress. And I also just want to mention that you can use this as a warm-up to your canvas. If you don't want to mess up your canvas, you can use the art journal spread just to practice techniques, practice your painting, and then in the end you go over to the canvas. So if you're brave, and that's what today's artwork is about, it's about bravery, you just go onto the artwork. So I was just trying to be brave and just messed with it, and I'm very happy with what I see, all the different textures, and I'm going to paint her in and add color to her hair. I want this flower to pop, I want her wings to pop, and her beadwork around her neck and her lips, and I still need to add a little bit of perhaps the word courage in here somewhere, so I want to think about it. I don't want to rush into this too much. So she can stand on an easel somewhere, or you can put her to the side, and you don't have to rush in to color everything in. I don't want to put pressure on you to finish something in 4 hours. Try to finish something like this in 4 hours. I want you to start with your project, and we will build over it, and we will come back to this. But I think we covered the Mixed Media 101 a little bit today, so I don't want to go into painting techniques and faces and all of that. You can drop inks into this and spray it and see what effects you get. You can add gold to it. You can go crazy with all the different effects. You've seen how I lay it with using everyday things like box sheet from cereal boxes and tea leaves, dried tea leaves, to create a texture. You don't even feel the texture there, that it's going to be like loose leaves coming off, because it's sealed in with the gel medium. Eggshells. So also what I can just suggest, if I touch my canvas, I can feel it's kind of cold, so it's still not totally dry. And especially when you use organic material, I would suggest that you leave it for a couple of hours or even a day, and let it properly dry before you add more paint and things to it. I don't want to mess this. This is a little bit of a patient builder, I would say, or patience builder, for me specifically. If you just want to do the artwork, you can add it to your canvas, add a background, pretty paper to the background, add your girly on top, paint out her face and her hair, and give her some lips and color in things. You can play with the paper. The paper adds a lot of texture and color to a canvas without even trying too hard. All right, so it's not finished. There's a lot of things that I want to work on here, but I'm building this project, and I am going to do another class with you where I will finish her. But I hope that you are excited about this and that you will start with the basics of layering your background. You don't need to start off with a large canvas. This one, the size of this canvas is 10 inches by 10 inches. Right, so that's about 250 millimeters, 25 centimeters by 25 centimeters. So you don't need a very large canvas to start off with. Start small. You can even go half the size or even smaller like this, and just practice the techniques a little bit and get out of your comfort zone. Try the Americana paints if you haven't done so yet. I will be adding a little bit of the ink sprays and my gelatos. I'm going to play with gelatos. I'm going to play with other things here and mixing in my products into this. But I don't want this first class for mixed media to go too long. I want you to get a start, and then we will work on this, and I will show you. I'll tape the layering of adding product and the painting so you won't miss a thing. But I hope that you get excited about this project. Sorry. I really feel good about that card that we put together. Just want to find it again. It's here in front of me. And I feel like I'm covering all the bases here, and it helped me kickstart this process. So instead of just worrying about what I'm going to teach you, that card directed me. I feel like I built that on the right foundation. God was behind me doing this, and I can see this developing in front of me, and I'm really, really excited about what I'm seeing about this artwork happening in front of me. And I think you're going to be really surprised when you see how it ends off. And remember that every artwork, especially with mixed media, you get to a point where you think, oh man, that's really ugly, that's not what I want at all. But it's part of the layering. You need that base there. So if you don't like what you see on the screen at the moment, remember this is a layer to your artwork, and it's not going to be finished. So yes, it is kind of stretching me to be less impatient. Normally an artwork like this, I don't put as much texture in the background, maybe a little bit of a stenciling, and just play with paper and paint and my pens. You can add your gelatos or some ink to it, and then it's done. So I would suggest, if you layer a lot and you put a lot of texture into your artwork, let it dry properly and then go on the next day. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to rush this because I don't want to make a mess, and I want to think about the process that I want to use. I definitely want to add in some of the gelatos. I want to use my koi pens. And I also want to try embossing a little bit, but that would probably be on the top layer. Before I finish everything off, I will try the embossing as well. Otherwise you will just lose it, because embossing is the final touch that you put on something, and it's not something that you want to layer and layer and layer too much. You will lose that product. I attended a convention or a big event once, and the lady was showing us techniques, and she was adding product and product and product, and actually all she needed to do, and it was on chipboard, and actually what she just needed to do was to color the chipboard with a paint or an ink and just emboss the top layer. That's it. She didn't need all the layering in the product, because you don't see all of that in the end. So it's just a question of pushing product. And I don't want to push product on you. Look what we used. We used basically gel media most of the time. We used some printed paper and the artwork. You can do your own artwork. You don't need to use mine. We used eggshells, which you have in your kitchen, tea leaves from a dried tea, from a used tea bag that's dried out. So make sure that it's dried out, clean it, wash it so that all the color comes out. You don't want it to stain necessarily, unless you do want it to stain your artwork. You can leave the color in there, that's fine, but I didn't want it to stain it. I wanted to use the leaves as a texture, and I dried it first and then I added gel medium to it, and because you need a stickiness so that it adheres to whatever surface you add it to. And I layered on top with primer again to color it, and then with a top layer of gel medium just to make sure it doesn't come off, and I can feel it's there. You can see it's not going to fall off at any time. And all I need to do now is to add my coloring to this, add my paint layers, line my artwork, and then when I'm finished with that, I will give it a final layer with gel medium just to make sure that I seal my canvas. I will also be painting the sides in a color. I don't know yet if it's going to be white. I tend to stay away from white on the sides, probably that dark brown color, maybe blue, I'm not sure. But I will paint the sides, and then I will show you the finished product, and I will show you also a little bit about my process. So I'll probably do a little speed up video and just add it to the class later on and let you know. But for now, this is your class. So what did you learn? You learned how to prep your surfaces, how to use stencils, how to add texture by using cardstock or cereal box, sorry, I keep on forgetting the word, cereal box, and your eggshells and your tea leaves, and how to color in the background a little bit just to add, to make your artwork stand out and give it that lining effect. We're going to paint away all of this darkness here. It's not going to stay there. It's just an underlayer for the painting. And you learned how to use your paper. You learned how to trace your artwork onto your canvas using carbon paper. I would say that's the easiest way to do it. Stick it down with washi tape. Stick your picture also onto the carbon paper with washi tape so that it doesn't move. Leave it open on one end so that you can flip it open and see if you're pressing hard enough, but your artwork will fall back into place and nothing will have moved. I would say that would be a trick of the trade. Otherwise you will have your lines move about and you won't have a crisp image there transferred to your canvas. There are other ways of transferring as well. You can just print it off on vellum and just stick it down like I did with this image. It was paper printed on white copy paper, but I could have done it on vellum as well. But it feels like it's already painted in there. I can do the background in color and she can be white, and that's fine, and I've got an artwork already. But there's you can do a transfer as well by flipping your image, printing it in a mirror image, and then painting it on with a glue, and then washing off the paper, and it will, your lined or your printed image will stay there. There are different ways of doing it. I like the carbon paper. It's clean, it's quick, and it feels like you are training your brain to do the drawing yourself. If you do transfers and just sticking things down, think about that. Is your brain really learning how to do the drawing, how to draw eyes and a face and do the shapes and the curves and all of that? Your brain isn't learning that. It's just learning to stick things down. So my teacher tip of the day would be use carbon paper so that your brain can start to learn how to do the drawing of a face. Over time, your hands and your eye and your brain will catch up, and you will start to naturally want to draw faces the way that you learned how to do it. So choose an artist that you like the style of and the look of the artwork and the faces that they do, collect those, and then start transferring them using copy paper, but always give the artist credit. Don't say, oh, this is my artwork and sign it, it's yours. Yes, the artwork that you made is yours, but the art that you used was someone else's. Always give that person credit. If I would suggest to do this, that if this is your artwork, don't take credit if it's someone else's, but if it's yours, you can sign it. If it's just a practice run and you repeating someone else's artwork, you can write on the back and you can say, I did this artwork on this day. It was an experiment. I used this artist image or artwork on it. Put the detail on the back of the canvas and leave it unsigned. Then you know, oh, this was just an experiment. Remember we said that you have a process. You're either a naturalist moving into being a scientist in your studio. This is the scientist phase where you're learning how to do things. The thumbprint phase is the last one, when you become the DJ, when you start to play with all the ideas that you've learned from me and other artists and teachers. Then you can say, okay, it's thumbprint, it's mine. I can put my thumbprint on it. I created this from scratch. I want to encourage you to get to that point. Don't stop here. Don't just copy other people. Don't be a copycat. That was part of our retreat gardens content also, is to look at the weeds. Don't just copy. What type of artist do you want to be in the end? Do you want to copy me for the sake of learning? Yes, that's fine. Please do. Please go ahead and do that and copy and reproduce that artwork the best you can, because you are learning. Your thumbs are learning, your fingers are learning, your eyes are picking up things and remembering things. So you're learning skills. Then go over and say, I'm going to put that away. I'm going to start fresh with a blank canvas with my own art. Use the sunflower system. Curate a little project. How can I now just use my card and start from the beginning with no help from anybody else, and see what God does for me and through my fingers. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this class. It's not the end though, because we still need to see the finished product. But I want you to feel the anticipation with me and the excitement of, oh, I want to see how this is going to end off. So see you in the next class.